Eleanor,
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Whenever you're
Oh,
ready,
okay.
if you would like to start reading.
I'm ready.
Okay?
Yeah. I'm ready for everything. It will be scary. Okay, so I'll start. This first theft marked Buck as fit to survive in the hostile Northland environment. It marked his adaptability, his capacity to adjust himself to changing conditions, the lack of which would have meant swift and terrible death. It marked further two pieces of his moral nature, a vain thing and a handicap in the ruthless struggle for existence. It was all well enough in the Southland, under the law of love and fellowship, to respect private property and personal feelings, but in the Northland, under the law of club and fun, whoso took such things into account was a fool, and in so far as he observed them he would fail to prosper. Not that Buck reasoned it out. He was fit, that was all, and unconsciously he life. All his days, no matter what the odds, he had never run from a fight. But the club of the man in the red sweater had beaten into him a more fundamental and primitive code. Civilized, he could have died for a moral consideration, say the defense of Judge Miller's riding whip, but the completeness of his civilization was now evidenced by his ability to flee from the defense of a moral consideration and so save his hide. He did not steal for joy of it, but because of the clamor, but stole secretly and cunningly, out of respect for club and fun. In short, the things he did were done because it was easier to do them than not to do them. His development, or retrogression, was rapid. His muscles became hard as iron, and he grew callous to all ordinary pain. He achieved an internal as well as external economy. He could eat anything, no matter how loathsome or indigestible, and once eaten, the juices of his stomach extracted the last, and his blood carried it to the farthest reaches of his body, bringing it into the toughest and stoutest of tissues. Sight and scent became remarkably keen, while his hearing developed such acuteness that in his sleep he heard the faintest sound and knew whether it heralded peace or peril. He learned to bite the ice out with his teeth when it collected between his toes, and when he was thirsty and there was a thick scum of ice over the water hole, he would break it by rearing and striking. His most conspicuous trait was an ability to scent the wind and forecast it a night in advance. No matter how breathless the air when he dug his nest by a tree or bank, the wind that later blew inevitably found him to leeward, sheltered and snug. And not only did he learn by experience, by instincts long dead became alive again. The domesticated generations fell from him. In vague days he remembered back to the youth of the breed, to the time the white dog forest, and killed their meat as they ran it down. It was no task for him to learn to find with cut and slash and the quick wolf snap. In this manner had fought forgotten ancestors. They quickened the earth life within him, and the earth tricks which they had stamped into the heredity of the breed, were his tricks. They came to him without effort or discovery, as though they had been his always. And when on the still cold nights he pointed his nose at a star and howled long and wool that and dust, pointing nose at star and howling down through the centuries and through him. And his cadences were their cadences, the cadences which voiced their woe, and what to them was the meaning of the stiffness, and the cold and dark. Thus as token of what the puppet thing life is, the ancient song surged through him, and he came into his own again, and he came because men had found a yellow metal in the north, and because Manuel was a gardener's helper, his wife, and drive small copies of himself.
Okay, well done. That's great because we just finished a chapter. Well done. So
yes,
chapter 3. Okay, just bear with me 1 second. One little word.
Oh yes.
There. No, there's only a couple of words. Don't worry. And it's mostly about stress. And I think you just misread one. Hello, Rima. How are you?
Hello, Rima.
How are you? Have you got voice?
Hello.
Hello. Did you get
I'm
my message, by the
Thanks.
way?
Yes.
Did you get my message on Spreaker?
Yes, I will accept it. Good proposal, actually.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I know it's you. Because I was listening to the radio and you didn't say it. And I'm like, that's wrong. That's so wrong. Marco always says hello.
Okay. Yes, and I struggled what to choose because the most difficult is how to begin, and like introduction or something like it, and I will accept it. Good proposal.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think it'll sort of like help you also in a sort of NLP kind of a way of thinking, okay, now I'm speaking English because this is what I do when I speak English. Okay, so we got a bit of crackling from Eleanor. There was a little bit of breaking up today, I have to say. April actually was going 1 2 1 2. It cut from time to time for me as well, but it was a strange. It wasn't like your lines breaking up. It's more like you've got a bad connection on your wires somewhere, maybe. I don't know, but anyway, let's have a look at your corrections.
Drivers. Yeah, I said drivers. Yes, I remember.
Suddenly went into drivers.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one though, which is personal.
Okay, not with the last.
Yeah.
Personal. Is it better?
Yeah, not personal. Personal. It's the ul at the end.
Personal.
Yes, that's it.
Personal. Okay.
And then but instincts, not by. I think you.
But instincts. Yeah. Okay.
There's a comma. And it did say by earlier, and then you allowed that because it said he learnt by experience, by instincts long dead. No, because did he learn by experience, but instincts long dead became alive again. And as you quite rightly put out, rightly said diverse.
Diverse, yes.
Yeah. Not divers, diverse. You've got a soft
diverse
at the end, yeah. Not because if it was divers, as in scuba divers, then you have this. But diverse, okay, is, which I presume is what they meant to write here. In fact, I would write it, of course, correctly, but maybe it's the American spelling. I don't know, because I'd put diverse with an E on the end. Diverse, okay.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, and it must be diverse because it's diverse small copies of himself, lots of little copies of himself. Okay, you can't see April. Marco, April's being silly today, so see if you can find her. She's playing hide and seek.
Thanks to mouse, I can now zoom. And April, what are you doing on this platform?
I'm. What do you call a person who is talking for public just to take attraction about politics, something like that, Lynn?
Well, we do say I'm on my soapbox.
Like me?
To be on your soapbox means to sort of give speeches,
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
informally, but at the moment you're not actually on a soapbox, you're on a postbox. I'm holding forth, I'm holding court maybe.
I have a question about the text, actually.
Okay, carry on. What
This
is
one. This one. So I think I have to read that like this. He learned to bite the ice out with his teeth and so on and so on.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But what does it mean? How can you bite out ice?
Well, it's formed a frozen layer, so he's just going to basically use the power of his jaws to break the ice. Okay, just so he can get at the water
But
underneath.
isn't it already in his toes? When it collected between his toes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. No. Sorry. Ignore me. No, he learnt. I don't know if you've ever had a dog, but can you remember a few years back I posted a photograph of Sam in little boots in the snow because we had to buy him little booties. He had long fur between his toes and it would clump. The snow would clump onto the fur and it could form into ice crystals which could really hurt the pads of his toes. So what he would do, well, we eventually bought him boots because it's horrible to see, your dog's paws bleeding. So we had to, he looked ridiculous, but it stopped him damaging his paws. But what a dog will do is try and pull the ice out from between the toes with their teeth. Yeah?
Okay.
Literally nibbling at the paws to get the ice off. Okay?
Yeah, I was when I read that sentence, I was thinking not the toes but the mouth. So I think, how can you bite an ice out?
Oh, I see. Yeah, no,
from
I was
your
getting
mouth?
confused with the bit about the water freezing on top of the the ice forming on the water. But no, that you're right. It's the bit where he's biting. He gets his paw, puts it in his mouth, and nibbles away, trying to get the ice balls off his feet. Okay. Okay, so Shiny, it is your turn to read. Shiny's turning into a Wolof. So, Shiny, your turn to read.
Chapter 3, the
Chapter 3.
dominant, the dominant primordial beast. The dominant primordial beast was strong in bulk, and under the fierce conditions of trail life, it grew and grew. Yet it was a secret growth. His newborn carnage gave him poise and control. He was too busy adjusting himself to the new life to feel at ease. And not only did he not pick fights, but he avoided them whenever possible. A certain deliberateness characterized his attitude. He was not prone to rashness and precipitate action, and in the bitter hatred between him and Spitz, he betrayed no impassioned, shunned all offensive acts. On the other hand, possibly because he defined in bulk a dangerous rival, Spitz never lost an opportunity of showing his teeth. He even went out of his way to bully Buck, striving constantly to start the fight, which could end only in the death of one or the other. Early in the trip, this might have taken place had it not been for an unwanted accident. At the end of this day, they made a bleak and miserable camp on the shore of Lake Labarge, driving snow, a wind that cut like a white-hot knife, and darkness had forced them to grope for a camping place. They could hardly have fared worse. At their backs rose a perpendicular wall of rock, and Perrault and Francois were compelled to make their fire and spread their sleeping robes on the ice of the lake itself. The tent they had discarded at Dyer in order to travel light. A few sticks of driftwood furnished them with a fire that thawed down through the ice and left them to eat supper in the dark. Close in under the sheltering rock, Buck made his nest. So snug and warm was it that he was loath to leave it when Francois distributed the fish which he had first thawed over the fire. But when Buck finished his ration and returned, he found his nest occupied. A warning snarl told him that the trespasser was Spitz. Till now, Buck had avoided trouble with his enemy, but this was too much. The beast in him roared. He sprang upon Spitz with a fury which surprised them both, and Spitz, particularly for his whole experience with Buck, had gone to teach him that his rival was an unusually timid dog, who managed to hold his own only because of his great weight and size. Francois was surprised too when they shot out in the tangle from the disrupted nest, and he defined the cause of the trouble. "Ah!" he cried to Buck. "Give it to him! By God, give it to him! The dirty thief!" Spitz was equally willing. He was crying with sheer rage and eagerness as he circled back and forth for a chance to spring in. Buck was no less eager and no less cautious, as he likewise circled back and forth for the advantage. But it was then that the unexpected happened. The thing which projected their struggle for supremacy far into the future, past many a weary mile of trail and toil, and oath from Perrault, the resounding impact of a club upon the bony frame, and the thrill yelp of pain heralded the breaking forth of pandemonium. The camp was suddenly discovered to be alive with skulking furry forms, starving huskies, 4 or 5 score of them, who had scented the camp from some Indian village. They had crept in while Buck and Spitz were fighting, and when the two men sprang around them with stout clubs, they showed their teeth and fought back. They were crazed by the smell of the food. Perrault found one with head buried in the grub box. His club landed heavily on the gaunt ribs, and the grub box was capsized on the ground. On the instant, a score of the famished brutes were scrambling for the bread and bacon. The clubs fell upon them unheeded. They yelped and howled under the rain of blows, but struggled none the less madly until the last crumb had been devoured.
Good.
In the meantime,
Okay, that's enough, thank you. That's fine, well done. So, bear with me a second. Nicely read. And let me go back to my own avatar so that the recording is clear. So, let me have a look. There's a few words for you. Okay, and we seem to have a little issue with the long A sound. You're saying eh rather than a. So let's have a look at the first one, which is gave. From to give, he gave. Try it.
gave.
That's it, yeah. So that A sound. We'll come across a couple more in a minute. Then the next one is from the eyes. It's a Z sound, so it's characterized.
Characterized.
Yeah, try and get the Z. Characterized.
Characterized.
Much better, well done. Then divined, not defined. Divined. To work something out, you divine it, okay? Divined.
Defined. Defined.
Yeah, you've got to get the the, otherwise it'll sound like, if it sounds like fur, it'll sound like to define rather than to divine, okay? Okay, the next one is again this long A. You have a tendency to say rather than a. This is taken, not taken, taken.
Taken.
Now there are parts of the world where people will say taken, but really even in American English, taken is better, okay? The next one, it's not a long A, it's fared. To fare well or to fare badly. Yeah, it means how do you do about something, how you do at something. So this is fared. Try it.
Fared.
And the next one, I think it just had too many syllables for you, Shiny. Perpendicular. Perpendicular. Straight up and down. Perpendicular.
Perpendicular.
Yeah, it's not so scary when you just, when you hear it, you think, oh, that's easy. The next one, just the D ending. You need it to show it that's in the past. Thawed.
Thawed.
That's it. And then unexpected.
Unexpected.
Yeah, you expect something or you don't expect it. If you don't expect it, it's unexpected. Okay?
Unexpected.
Very good. And then the next one, it's not wary, it's weary.
Weary.
That's it. As in tired. You know that song? Women do get weary wearing that same shabby dress. Then the next one, you've got to get the sh, not th. Okay, it's shrill, not thrill, shrill.
Shrill.
Yeah. Some people whistle shrilly, so a very high-pitched, loud, annoying sound. Or you could have a shrill voice. Oi, you, come over here! That would be a shrill voice, okay? And then the next one, it's grub box. It's hyphenated. So it's a box for grub. Grub is another word for food. Grub is like slang for food. So it's just a grub box. Try it.
Grub box.
Yay, perfect. And then the brutes. It's a long oo sound. Brutes.
Brutes.
Yeah, uncouth, rude and violent people. You could call them a brute. Okay. And then the next one, again, is this A sound. It's not beckon. That means come here, and I'm using my finger to sort of beckon you to me. It's bacon. Bacon.
Bacon.
Yeah, that's it. So that long A sound, you need to work on it a little bit. Because, as I say, beckon is a word. It means come here, and you use your finger to sort of beckon the person to you. Come over here now. She said beckoning. But bacon... we haven't got any bacon, I'm afraid. We've only got beans today. So we've only got beans in the pot, but they often go nicely with bacon. Okay? Any questions? No? No questions? No? Okay then, April, from your for your oration. I'll have to come over to you so I can hear you. Are you ready to read?
Okay.
From your
Okay.
postbox?
This is good. In the meantime, the astonished team dogs had burst out of their nests, only to be set upon by the fierce invaders. Never had Buck seen such dogs. It seemed as though their bones would burst through their skins. They were mere skeletons draped loosely in draggled hides, with blazing eyes and slavered fangs. But the hunger madness made them terrifying, irresistible. There was no opposing them. The team dogs were swept back against the cliff at the first onset. Buck was beset by 3 huskies, and in a trice his head and shoulders were ripped and slashed. The din was frightful. Billy was crying as usual. Dave and Solex, dripping blood from a score of wounds, were fighting bravely side by side. Joe was snapping like a demon. Once his teeth closed on the foreleg of a husky, and he crunched down through the bone. Pike, the malingerer, leaped upon the crippled animal, breaking its neck with a quick flash of teeth and a jerk. Buck got a frothing adversary by the throat and was sprayed with blood when his teeth sank through the jugular. The warm taste of it in his mouth goaded him to greater fierceness. He flung himself upon another, and at the same time felt teeth sink into his own throat. It was Spitz treacherously attacking from the side. Perrault and Francois, having cleaned out their part of the camp, hurried to save their sled dogs. The wild wave of famished beasts rolled back before them, and Buck shook himself free. But it was only for a moment. The 2 men were compelled to run back to save the grub, upon which the huskies returned to the attack on the team. Billy, terrified into bravery, sprang through the savage circle and fled away over the ice. Pike and Dub followed on his heels, with the rest of the team behind. As Buck drew himself together to spring after them, out of the tail of his eye, he saw Spitz rush upon him with the evident intention of overthrowing him. Once off his feet, and under that mass of huskies, there was no hope for him. But he braced himself to the shock of Spitz's charge, then joined the flight out on the lake. Later, the 9 team dogs gathered together and sought shelter in the forest. Though unpursued, they were in a sorry plight. There was not one who was not wounded in 4 or 5 places, while some were wounded grievously. Dub was badly injured in hind leg. Dolly, the last husky added to the team at Dyer, had a badly torn throat. Joe had lost an eye, while Billy, the good-natured, with an ear chewed and ran to ribbons, cried and whimpered through the night. At daybreak they limped wearily back to camp to find the marauders gone and the 2 men in bad tempers. Fully half their grub supply was gone. The huskies had chewed through the sled lashings and canvas coverings. In fact, nothing, no matter how remotely eatable, had escaped them. They had eaten a pair of Perrault's moose hide moccasins, chunks out of the leather traces, and even 2 feet of flesh from the end of Francois' whip. He broke from a mournful contemplation of it to look over his wounded dogs. "Ah, my friends," he said softly, "maybe it take you mad dog, those many bites. Maybe all mad dogs, sacre dam. What you think, eh, Pero?" The courier shook his head dubiously. With 400 miles of trail still between him and Dawson, he could ill afford to have madness break out among his dogs. 2 hours of cursing and exertion got the harnesses into shape, and the wound-stiffened team was underway, struggling painfully over the hardest part of the trail they had yet encountered, and for that matter, the hardest between them and Dawson.
Very good. Well done.
This one?
Okay, yep.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Nicely read. So, let's have a go. And you get a couple of smileys. And I've got a little question for you all at the end. But let's look at the individual words first. The first word is a bit odd. I'm interpreting the text to say that it comes from to slaver. Okay, not slaver. Slaver is a verb.
Saliva.
Yeah,
Saliva.
slaver is a verb, which means you basically drooling. Okay, if you have saliva running from your mouth, for example, this morning when I was showing the picture of the chocolates, did you start to slaver? Actually, humans tend not to slaver, but animals do, especially if they're hungry and they smell food, they start to drool, and we call it slavering. Okay, so I'd say slavered, not slavered, slavered.
Okay, slavered.
Very
Slavered.
good. Good. And the next one, slashed.
Slashed.
Yeah, you've got to get, well done. That sh in the middle is very important. To slash, they slashed. The next one, difficult one really, is it leaped, or I would always say leapt. And I would always spell it with a T because I'm British. And I would give it the sound. To leap, he leapt. Now, do they say in American English leaped? In all honesty, I don't know, and it's impossible for me to find out. But I have got American friends, and they do say leapt, but they do spell it with an L-E-A-P-E-D. Okay, so they're both acceptable in spelling. With the T ending, it tends to mean British English, but I do say leapt. Okay.
Leapt. But what about cleaned, Lynn? Because sometimes
Cleaned,
I
yeah.
see like this one. Is that cleaned or cleansed?
Let me have a look. That's cleaned. You might be confusing it with cleansed. So you cleanse your face of makeup. We say to cleanse, but you'd say cleaned, not cleansed. I've never heard cleansed, I'll be honest.
So it doesn't exist, this one.
Left or
cleansed.
leaped.
It doesn't exist
Left or leaped.
as a pastime,
I've
form,
never seen
pastime form. Okay.
Clent. Ooh, does it even exist? No. No.
Yeah, like lint and lint, it exists. Lint or
leaped,
lent.
Now, I've just asked
Lint.
I've just asked how do you say, and they're accepting leaped or leapt. Okay, so it sounds as though Americans might say leaped. So it's up to you. If you want to sound American, carry on with leaped. If you want to sound British, say leapt. Okay.
Actually, it depends. If I see leapt with if it is
or an
written
ED,
with T,
yeah.
I will say leapt.
Good. Well, that's probably the best way. Yeah, and we do say leaned and leant. Yeah, he leaned against, but I'd say he leant against the. Yeah, he leant against the post. Okay. Okay, so let's go. The next one, I think you just misread it. It actually said throughout, but you decided to say through. Okay, so just say it throughout.
Throughout.
Yeah, and it would have been fine. Through the night, throughout the night. Throughout is just a little bit more literary, okay? Then the next one, it's not, it's very Dutch. Moors. No, it's moose. Moose hide. Moose hide.
Moose hide.
Yeah.
Is it an S or a Z, Lynn? Moose or moose?
With an S.
Moose, S.
Yeah.
Moose hide.
Moose. That's it. A moose hide. I haven't got a moose. I've only got an elk. But I'm going to put the elk in anyway. There you go. Oh, sorry. I think I've just... No, he's all right. I thought I'd landed him on top of Marco, but it's okay. So yeah, these kinds of animals, they often got trapped and skinned and turned into clothing. So this was the moose hide, would be the skin of the moose, okay? Or the hide. Often when we talk about animals, we don't talk about animals. Well, actually, no, people do talk about animal skins. But once it's off the animal, it becomes a hide, a whole hide kind of thing. We were looking for a new rug the other week, and it must be very popular in Germany at the moment to have animal hides on the floor. Because when we went to this carpet place, there were loads of animal hides. And hubby looked at them and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think Leica would eat them." I could just imagine her lying down, chomping down on these hides. She'd think they were chews. Okay, so let's get back to your... Sorry, I'm blathering on. Let's get back to your feedback. Moose hide. Okay, April?
Okay, moose hide.
Perfect. Then you get 3 smileys, actually. The first one, treacherously. I know we say teacher, but treachery and treacherously. Try it.
Treacherously.
Perfect. And then polite. Polite,
Yeah,
if you're in
polite.
danger. Yeah, and you were quite right. Warily, not wearily. Warily.
Warily.
Yes.
It's a little bit odd there because it looks like warily.
Yeah, but we don't. We do say war, but you're wary. If you're wary, you're a little scared. So, for example, my little elk here is looking warily at Buck at the other end of the chair here, of the seat. He's probably a little worried. Quite right too. Now, in the text, it says out of the tail of his eye. Now, I've never heard this before. Okay, what would we normally say? What would be the normal way of saying this? Any idea? Any of you? If you
Not in his eyesight.
No. It's got the form out of the, and then it's out of the something of his eye. Okay, but what would we say? I wouldn't use tail. I'd use another word there.
The corner?
Yay! Well done. Out of the corner of his eye, because your eye has corners, yeah. It doesn't have a tail. I don't know where this out of the tail of his eye. It might be an Americanism. I've never heard it before. But we would say, oh, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It means it was in your peripheral vision. Okay? Well done, April. Yeah. Out of the corner. Eyesight, within eyesight would mean more direct, Marco. Sort of direct line of sight.
But not, you can't see it or them easily.
No, it's like a little glimpse. It's like you were looking for April earlier, and if you'd sort of seen out of the corner of your eye, you might have seen her.
Oh, I might. Okay.
Yeah, because you're sitting facing Eleanor. So really, if you think about it, where your avatar is, you could possibly have seen her. Just let me close that down. I'll put it onto the stream how you might have seen her. Literally like this, just out of the corner of your eye. Okay, you'll have to look at the stream to see what I'm talking about though, because I'm doing it from my perspective, not yours. Okay. So we would normally say out of the corner of your eye. Yeah. Any questions? Happy, happy, happy? Everybody happy?
It's very bloody. Eh?
It's
The
very
violent-
brutal. Yes, it is. It's. I mean, this book is a real classic. But it's surprising me. I'd forgotten just how brutal it is, to be honest. 'Cause it's been a long time since I read it. But it was an adventure book for children, really. But yeah, it's it's very bloody. As Poetria wrote, as Eleanor wrote in the forum, very brutal. It's very brutal. I read that and I thought, uh-oh, we're going to get more blood and guts. Okay. So, Marco, Rima, are you okay to start reading now?
Okay. From the 30 mile.
Yes, from there.
Oh, okay. The 30-mile river was wide open. Its wild water defied the frost, and it was in the eddies only and in the quiet places that the ice held at all. 6 days of exhausting toil were required to cover those 30 terrible miles. And terrible they were, for every foot of them was accomplished at the risk of life to dog and man. A dozen times Perrault, nosing the way, broke through the ice bridges, being saved by the long pole he carried, which he so held that it fell each time across the hole made by his body. But a cold snap was on, the thermometer registering 50 below zero, and each time he broke through he was compelled for very life to build a fire and dry his garments. Nothing daunted him. It was because nothing daunted him that he has been chosen for government career. He took all manner of risks, resolutely thrusting his little wizened face into the frost and struggling on from him down to the dark. He skirted the frowning shores on rim ice that bent and crackled underfoot and upon which they dared not halt. Once the sled broke through with Dave and Buck, and they were half frozen and all but drowned by the time they were dragged out. The usual fire was necessary to save them. They were coated solidly with ice, and the 2 men kept them on the run around the fire, sweating and thawing, so close that they were singed by the flames. At another time Spitz went through, dragging the whole team after him up to Buck, who strained backward with all his strength, his 4 paws on the slippery edge and the ice quivering and snapping all around. But behind him was Dave, likewise straining backward, and behind the sled was Francois, pulling till his tendons cracked. Again, the rim ice broke away before and behind, and there was no escape except up the cliff. Perrault scaled it by a miracle, while Francois prayed for just that miracle, and with every thong and sled lashing and the last bit of harness thrown into a long rope, the dogs were hoisted one by one to the cliff crest. Francois came up last, after the sled and load. Then came the search for a place to descend, which descent was ultimately made by the aid of the rope, and night found them back on the river with a quarter of a mile to the day's credit. By the time they made the Utalingua and Good Eyes, Buck was played out. The rest of the dogs were in like condition, but Perrault, to make up lost time, pushed them late and early. The first day they covered 35 miles to the Big Salmon. The next day 35 more to the Little Salmon. The third day 40 miles, which brought them well up toward the Five Fingers. Buck's feet were not so compact and hard as the feet of the Huskies. His head softened during the many generations since the day his last wild ancestors was tamed by a cave dweller or riverman. All day long he limped in agony, and camp once made, lay down like a dead dog. Hungry as he was, he would not move to receive his ration of fish, which Francois had to bring to him. Also, the dog driver rubbed Buck's feet for half an hour each night after supper, and sacrificed the tops of his own moccasins to make 4 moccasins for Buck. This was a great relief, and Buck caused even the wizened face of Perrault to twist itself into a grin one morning. When Francois forgot the moccasins and Buck lay on his back, his 4 feet waving appealingly in the air, and refused to budge without them. Later, his feet grew hard to the trail, and the worn-out foot gear was thrown away.
Very good. Well done. I can honestly say to you that Sam never, ever, ever asked to have his little booties put on him. Not once in his life. But yes, okay. Maybe he didn't have the good sense that Buck obviously does. Okay, so nicely read, Marco. Here's your text. So we've got a smiley, well done, and a couple of words. Actually, the first one, later you said it correctly, but the first time you said it, it sounded too much like eyes. It's ice, ice, ice baby. Dum 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 diddle dum dum. Ice, ice baby. Okay, so try it. Ice.
Ice Nation.
Yeah, Ice Station Zebra, if you like. Then,
the hundreds.
Yeah.
Ice Nation.
Could you say the next word for me?
Dozen.
Dozen. Dozen, not doze.
Dozen.
Dozen.
Oh, okay.
It's an sound. Yeah,
Dozen.
I wasn't sure. I kind of heard it and I was like, oh, did I just hear that or am I imagining it? No.
Oh, yes,
So,
yes,
a dozen.
a dozen. I said dozen.
Yeah.
A dozen.
A dozen. Yeah, well done. Okay.
Oh,
Then
okay.
the next one, thermometer.
Could you repeat, Lina?
Yep. Thermometer. So it's an sound at the beginning. Thermometer. Try again.
Thermometer.
That's it, yeah. So I think with dozen and thermometer, you might want to write those down. I think from your, surprise, you've probably got them embedded in your head. So you need to shift it out, okay? Then the next one is a z sound. To choose, chosen, okay? Chosen. Although we say choice.
That's chosen.
Yeah, we say choice, but we say chosen, okay?
Chosen.
That's it. And then there's no mate in ultimately. It's not like ultimatum. It's ultimately.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I'll let you have the ulti. I'd say but I know Americans would say, yeah, It's British, but I know Americans say ultimately, but the important thing is no mate. So we say to give someone an ultimatum, but ultimately it's up to them whether they take it or not. Now the next one is important because it's a silent L, and it's a lot easier to say if you just say salmon.
Salmon.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. And then ration. Again, not a long A. Ration. We say nation, but ration. Sorry.
Russian. Is the same like people from Russia?
No, that's Russian. Ration. So you got and ra. Ration.
Oh, I can't find the difference.
That's in your head. So,
English.
Russian like rush. Okay, and ration like rat. Rush, rat. So, ration.
Russian rat.
No, don't say that. You'll have Putin after us. Okay, so let's put it this way. In Russia, there was rationing. Try that. In Russia, there was rationing.
In Russia, there was rationing.
No, you're saying rationing still. Rationing.
What? I don't know which sound I did.
The second one, the ration. You're saying rationing. Do watch the recording. If the recording works,
Oh, okay.
okay, you will
Okay.
hear it then. Because what you're saying, in your head, it sounds like what I'm saying. You're thinking, but that's what I'm saying, Lynn. But it's not. What's coming into my ears? What's coming into my ears is rush. Okay, so let's try this. In Russia, there was rationing, and people would rush to get the rations. Whew. Right, try this. Listen carefully. Listen very carefully. I will say this only once. Okay. In Russia, sorry. In Russia, there was rationing, and people would rush to get the rations. Try that.
In Russia, there was rationing, and people would rush to get their rations.
That's getting there. You're getting there. Okay, I'm going to make it more difficult. If anybody else wants to try this, you can. Yeah. And okay, in Russia there was rationing, and the Russians would rush to get the rations. Try that.
In Russia, there was rationing, and the Russians would rush to get the rations.
You just said would rush to get the Russians.
Yes.
You need to practice
I
it,
don't know.
okay?
Yes, okay, no problem.
Does anybody else want to have a go at that one?
I want to try.
Go on, April,
but
have a go.
I still don't get okay. Russia. In Russia, there was rationing, and the Russians would rush to get the rations.
Not bad. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to make it even more difficult.
Rations. To get the rations.
Not rations, rations. Okay, here's even worse. I'm going to make it worse for you. In Russia, there was rationing, and the Russians would rush rashly to get the rations. Shiny's just gone, what? Because what you're looking for here, can you say rash like that, Marco? Rash? Reba?
Rash.
Rash. Can you say ash?
What is the problem in this? Rash.
Rash, ash, hash.
Rash, ash, hash.
Rash, ash, hash. Okay, try it this way. Ash, hash, rash.
Ash, hash, rash.
That's it. That rash is what you're trying to get for ration. So try it. Ration.
Russian.
That's it.
Russian.
Okay. Have a listen to the thread, to the stream later, and you should hear the difference. Okay? It's obviously you've got it in your
And
head.
laugh your head off.
It's fun. It gives me fun. Okay. And then the last one is again a silent letter here. Silent L. It's half. Not half, half. Try it. Half.
Half.
No, half.
Oh, silent. Oh,
Yeah,
silent L.
totally
Okay.
silent L. Half.
Second half, but
Yeah, it's very important for you.
yes, but I was so sure that they said half and that they
Second
emphasized
half.
that. Okay.
Okay.
Half. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks.
And you get
Okay.
a smiley because, of course, you've got the silent T. You corrected yourself. Softened. Well done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so, hey, everybody got to read today. Excellent. And we finished on time.
Lynn?
Yeah. Yes, April, go on.
Lynn, you said in the beginning the difference between eyes and eyes. Is that at the end? The
Yeah, it's
difference?
whether it's a
eyes?
S or a
S?
Z. Okay, so if
Ah,
you've
yeah,
got
okay.
eyes.
Eyes.
Yeah, eyes is with
Uh-huh. Eyes.
yeah, Z. And ice is with a soft S. Okay. Got ice.
Ah, it's so difficult. Sometimes it's at S, and sometimes it's the Z.
Yes, I know.
Sound.
I know. It's unfair. What can I say? Nobody ever said it was going to be fair. Okay. So eyes would be more that, I guess. So you've got ice, yeah, and then you've got eyes. Okay, so ice is like that, and eyes is same beginning, but with a Z, a vibrating Z at the end, okay?
Okay.
Try this. He was up to his eyes in the ice. Try that.
He was up to his eyes in the ice.
Very good. Perfect. So, any other questions? Because we're up to at the Pelly one morning. Okay. Not sure what the Pelly is, but you see, there are words in books that even I don't. Oh, what the hell are you going on about? What's the Pelly? I'm sure it will become clear, I hope. But we will start from there next week. Okay.
It might be Philadelphia, I think, no?
Could be the Pelly, but that'd be the wrong part of the world. Maybe it's the name of a pub, possibly. There's a place in Chew Magna, near where I used to live in England, called the Pelly. And it's also short for pelican, so it might be the name of a pub or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it is an American author who wrote this book. So I was wondering, minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, because American use Fahrenheit like in England.
Yes,
but it's
totally different.
If it is Fahrenheit, it's not so
no,
low
but it's
then.
minus 50, I think, in I'm not sure what they use. Let's find out. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's still saying that they haven't converted. so they still use Fahrenheit. They haven't. Well, the thing is, they still use miles. They still use gallons. So minus 50 Fahrenheit is very, very cold. I can't hear you at the moment, Eleanor. I don't know. Can anybody hear Eleanor? I think Shiny has got a
No.
voice, but Eleanor, no, we've got no voice. No voice, poetry. I don't know if you can hear us. No voice, Eleanor, sorry. But I can't see you on my chat list either. You're a little blank. Anyway, we will... Shiny, what are you doing to that poor elk?
No, I want to write on him, but
Have I not warned you about sitting on things that aren't made to sit on? That's absolutely perverted. I better not film that. Oh my goodness. Oh dear. No, that's exactly what I was saying the other day about mesh and complex things when you try to sit on them. There's no saying where you'd end up. I'll put a riding saddle seat on him for next week. Try and remind me though, okay? Yeah, so minus 50 Fahrenheit is actually quite close in Celsius. It's minus 45 Celsius, April, so pretty bloody cold. Why is it so close? I don't know. I don't understand that. I never realised that. Let's try.
Yeah, sometimes it's a lot
it's
of
like gets close
differences.
at that level, doesn't it? That's crazy. I'm going to just put, because 0 degrees Fahrenheit is minus 17 Celsius, but minus 50 Fahrenheit is minus 45 Celsius. That seems really odd. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say in the session this morning, and I apologise. I am very, I'm very stressed out at the moment. But the answer to Riddle Me Ree was lovers. Okay.
But I have more answers.
I know
to
you
him.
did, but you gave me the right one, lovers. You only get one. Marco, yeah?
Lily, sorry. Yes, as April said, I also got. I wrote lovers, but I also found solver, and I didn't know. I read.
Okay, well,
I read your comment.
I've had a thought about this. You know the Moodle group, you know the Moodle website, which is where we run the vocabulary challenge from.
Vocabulary, yeah.
Vocabulary, yes,
Yeah.
I know.
What I've thought I might do for this week's, because you're right, you know, these letters sometimes will form into more than one word, okay? So what I've decided I'll do, I will put a clue to the meaning of the word into the Moodle site, but to see the clue, you'll need to enter the password, and the password will be the letters, all 6 letters in that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday form, okay?
How many possibilities?
So you'll have to, well, I'm trying to think what's the fair way, because of course if anybody asked me, you got one clue, by the way, April, so I wasn't going to give you another one, okay, because it's not fair if I give you lots and lots of clues, but what I was like, well, I won't always be available to people to give them the clue, you know, because on a Sunday I might not be here, the next Sunday I won't be here, the Sunday after that I won't be here. So I was trying to figure out how could I do this clue and be fair so that only people who've got the right letters could do it. And I sort of thought about it and I thought, well, the Moodle site allows you to set passwords. So what I will do, I will set the password to be and I'll just find it here, RMR Word Games, here it is. I'll set the password, and then if you've got the letters in the right order, okay, which was EVORSL, that was the right order. So EVORSL, that would be in that order: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That order would be your password, okay? And the clue you would have got if you'd done that is February is the month for these people. So you'd know that February is not the month for solvers, people, lovers, okay? So that would give you the clue that you'd need to get the right word, and that should negate the problem with getting more than one word, okay? But you will need to have all the letters in the right order, and it's also a way you can check if you've got the right letters as well, because if you don't get in, it's either I've forgotten to set the password, which is very possible, or you've got the wrong letters.
Marco, do you also have more than 6 letters?
No, not this time.
Well done, Marco. I have to say, April was very funny, because she got, how many letters did you have? 8, April?
8, yes. And for what clue I have 3 letters. I'm curious what word was that.
I don't think it's possible. Remember, it's got to be in the first word, but not in the second word. If it's in the second word, not in the first word, it doesn't count. It's always in the first word, but not in the second word. The other letters that appear in the second word, you can ignore, okay? The most important word is the first word to compare with the second word. For example, if we look at the first clue...
do that the fourth clue, please.
The fourth clue. No, I'm not going to do that. You'll be able to look at it when I get round to finishing off last week's, and then I'll do this week's. You can check it yourself. But if you look at it, you've got entail. So you go through supplicant. Okay, write it down, and then look at entails. So T, no. Okay, there it is. E isn't there. So that's it. E is the first letter. Okay. Because if you look for the other letters, let me just get entails. So if you needed to, you've got the T, you've got the S, you've got the A, okay, you've got the N, you've got the I, they're all in there. The only letter that isn't in there is the E, okay. However, you've got UPPLC, oh no, L as well, it's got to come out. So you've got UPPC, but they don't matter. They're just, throw them away. You're just interested in the E from entails, okay? I realise, shiny, but I hope you're still enjoying playing. I know it can be a bit frustrating. And I did laugh when I saw what Zeb said about, what Zom said about me. She says, I realise that Lynn pronounces the S funny at the end. I'm like, what? No, I don't. There is no shame. The shame is if you don't try. That's it. You did a good job. You nearly got there. Okay, but you were, I think day 5 was the one that threw you, shiny. Day 5. So, and it's not an easy game, you know, for learners, but it's meant to be fun. So I hope. I confused you yesterday. Why?
Yeah, when I read April with the clue, and I found two words like solver and the lovers.
And, yeah.
What will be like? I thought that you had intention that it's just a clue which will gives us suggestion about the correct word.
Yeah.
And
that was the
I
idea.
noticed.
But you have to ask me.
Yeah, but your picture, yes, your picture. I don't know what it was like. Some I don't know. Your reply to Zom, and Oh, it's possible
SOS.
that it's solver.
SOS.
It's solver. It's definitely solver. It's something that you have to find solution for him, and so
Oh, I
on like
see.
that.
In the radio thing.
Okay.
No. I would tell you if it was the clue. No, the clue. I was saying contact me and I'll send you a private message, but I don't think that's going to work because, as I say, when the game's playing and I'm not around, I won't be able to. So I think if we do it through the Moodle site, I'll just set up a little clue, like a course, like you log in for the vocabulary challenge. Yeah, you just find course clues or game clues. Yeah, and then all you have to do each week is enter the letters in the order you've got them. And if you enter them incorrectly and you've got the right letters, then you'll get a clue as to what the word is. Okay.
So the clue is only for the if we have two words
No, 6
from
letters. If you
I'll
have
put a
6
clue anyway
letters.
because I always put a clue in the
Oh,
final
anyway.
game. Yeah, I always put a clue in the final
Okay.
game that goes online. So the clue will be there anyway. It might help you if you're not used to anagrams. Okay. But it was good fun. It was good fun. 10 minutes one-on-one
Yes.
session for you, Shiny.
Agree.
I'm almost tempted to say, yeah, all right. But you know you can talk to me for 10 minutes anytime, sweetie. It's fine.
Can I give my session to Shiny if I got because I have in my account one?
No. I said at the very beginning of the game, no swapsies. Now, if you want to invite her to your session, that's something else, okay? But I can't be doing this. I'd get so confused. I get confused enough at my age. I don't need any more confusion. Marco is he's a gentleman, isn't he? He really is. The way you tried so hard to let April call heads or tails was very funny. Now, you'll notice I don't think I remember to send you the link to book your session, Marco, this weekend. I'm sorry, it's been mad this weekend, honestly crazy. But I will be doing. But you'll notice there's a gap coming up because I'll be here at the beginning of next week and then I'll be away for a week. So, but I suddenly realised you were going to have a very limited time to book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the week I'm coming back. So that's why I didn't send it to you this weekend because I was like, oh, he's going to have like 4 choices. That's not much. So I just need to update the calendar so that you've got more choice of when to book it. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Guys, you guys can meet up together and talk anytime. Just go on the forum, private message each other and say, do you want to chat on Skype? Do you want to chat on Google Plus? Do you want to chat on do you want to log into Kitely and go shopping? Don't wait for me to organise things. Just do it. Just do it.
Oh, Lynn, I was here yesterday. No, maybe day before yesterday, and one man gave me some. I asked him for how to find some good garments, and he gave me some places where to go, and I bought it, and but didn't manage to find this garment, these pieces of garments anywhere. And
were you off grid? Were you in hypergrid? Were you in Kitely or were you on hypergrid? I'll show you where to find it.
I can't tell you just right now, just to check.
Okay. Well, for starters, if you were able to find some freebies, don't forget, share it with us in there you go. Share it with us in the Virtual Worlders forum. Okay. I also shared some more places which I haven't checked, so do be careful. I haven't checked them, but I shared some more places on Google Plus. Now, if you're on Kitely, so for example, if there's a Kitely address in the URL, then you should just find the stuff in your if it says Kitely somewhere in the URL, you should find there it is.
But how do you recognize in URL?
Okay.
Is it Kitely
You'll
or not?
find
Because I found
grid.kitely.com is Kitely. Okay, that's the Kitely grid. That's the Kitely galaxy, if you like. If you go out of the Kitely galaxy into another galaxy in the OpenSim universe, then you'll have something like Hypergrid or something like, I don't know, Great Canadian Grid in the address. Okay, now if you do that, and I'll show you in the stream, so watch the video when it goes live. It takes a while to process, but when you go hypergridding, your stuff doesn't go into your inventory in the normal place. It goes into the inventory, okay, and then you have to go and find something called my suitcase. Okay. Now where it will be, it kind of depends on, let me just close down my teaching section and my textures section, because I've got a big lot of stuff in my... Okay, so what you have to do is scroll up and down in your inventory, okay, until you find something called my suitcase. Now mine is underneath my dustbin, and I've got other, the way you organise your folders will be different to mine, so when you look at the stream, but what you do is you open your inventory and you scroll down until you find my suitcase.
I don't have it. I know that this mate
what viewer are
told
you
me
using?
about it.
What viewer?
Firestorm.
Then you need to probably go to the Firestorm website and figure out, it will be there. If you took the stuff, if you bought it, if you can't see your suitcase in the inventory, it is still there, don't worry. You need to activate it on your viewer. So go to the Firestorm website and see how to find my suitcase. Firestorm.
Do you know what he said to me? He said, by the way, I suppose that I met him in a Kitely welcome when I don't know if we had a session or something like it, and that was the reason. And after it, I asked him, because he sent me maybe 10 places. I don't know, for someone I couldn't approach to some places, but and I brought, I don't know how many how many garments, pieces of garments, and but didn't make to implement it, to put it on myself. But yes, what I asked him, and he said, like, try, like you said, to find my suitcase. I didn't find then something else, like hidden objects or something like it. I'm not so sure about the precise term which he said to me. And after it, he gave me advice to clear my in preference to clear my clean my Firestorm browser cache, and I did it, but nothing.
Okay, have a look at. I'm going to have to go, guys. Sorry.
Okay, sorry then.
It's all right. But if you have a look at that thread, there are issues with this my suitcase thing. Okay. So have a look at that thread and see if that might help you. And don't forget, as members of Kitely, you can also ask in the forums. Okay. But the only way I know, you could maybe try a different viewer. Try the Alchemy viewer. Okay. I know that the Alchemy viewer works with the suitcase, and as far as I know, because I used a viewer once and it didn't have a my suitcase, and I thought I'd lost everything from the OpenSim community conference that I'd taken from the freebie stuff. I was very, very hacked off. But the next time I logged in using a different viewer with the my suitcase, there everything was. So I don't think you'll have lost anything. You just need to find a viewer with the my suitcase in it. Okay. So maybe try the Alchemy viewer, or see if you can fix your Firestorm to see if that will work. But I have got to go, sorry, okay? Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the session. You take care. Bye. Let me know how you get on as well, Marco. Just ask in the forum, in the Virtual Worlders group, and we'll see if we can get to the bottom of it. Okay? Bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye. Bye.
Eleanor?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Whenever you're ready, if you would like to start reading.
I'm ready.
Okay?
Yeah. I'm ready for everything. It will be scary. Okay, so I'll start. This first theft marked Buck as fit to survive in the hostile Northland environment. It marked his adaptability, his capacity to adjust himself to changing conditions, the lack of which would have meant swift and terrible death. It marked further two pieces of his moral nature, a vain thing and a handicap in the ruthless struggle for existence. It was all well enough in the Southland, under the law of love and fellowship, to respect private property and personal feelings, but in the Northland, under the law of club and fun, whoso took such things into account was a fool, and insofar as he observed them, he would fail to prosper. Not that Buck reasoned it out. He was fit, that was all, and unconsciously all his days, no matter what the odds, he had never run from a fight. At the club of the man in the red sweater had beaten into him a more fundamental and primitive code. Civilized, he could have died for a moral consideration, say the defense of Judge Miller's riding whip, but the complete of what a puppet thing life is, the ancient song surged through him, and he came into his own again, and he came because men had found a yellow metal in the north, and because Manuel was a gardener's helper his wife, and drive small copies of himself.
Okay, well done. That's great, because we've just finished a chapter. Well done. So
yes,
chapter 3. Okay, just bear with me 1 second. One little word.
Oh, yes.
There. No, there's only a couple of words, don't worry. And it's mostly about stress, and I think you just misread one. Hello, Rima. How are you?
Hello, Rima.
How are you? Have you got voice?
Hello.
Hello. Did you get my message, by the
Thanks.
way?
Yes.
Did you get my message on Spreaker?
Yes, I will accept it. Good proposal, actually.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I know it's you, because I was listening to the radio and you didn't say it, and I'm like, that's wrong. That's so wrong. Marco always says hello.
Okay. Yes, and I struggled what to choose because the most difficult is how to begin, and like introduction or something like it, and I will accept it. It's good proposal.
Yeah,
thanks.
I think it'll sort of like help you also in a sort of NLP kind of a way of thinking, okay, now I'm speaking English because this is what I do when I speak English. Okay, so we got a bit of crackling from Eleanor. There was a little bit of breaking up today, I have to say. April actually was throwing 1 2 1 2. It cut from time to time for me as well, but it was a strange. It wasn't like.
Was an ability to send the wind and forecast it a night in advance. No matter how breathless the air when he dug his nest by a tree or bank, the wind that later blew inevitably found him to leeward, sheltered and snug. And not only did he learn by experience, by instincts long dead became alive again. The domesticated generations fell from him. In vague days he remembered back to the youth of the breed, to the time the white dog forest, and killed their meat as they ran it down. It was no task for him to learn to find with cut and slash and a quick wolf snap. In this manner had fought forgotten ancestors. They quickened the air life within him, and the air tricks which they had stamped into the heredity of the breed were his tricks. They came to him without effort or discovery, as though they had been his always. And when on the still cold nights he pointed his nose at a star and howled long and wool that and dust, pointing nose at star and howling down through the centuries and through him. And his cadences were their cadences, the cadences which voiced their woe, and what to them was the meaning of the stiffness, and the cold and dark. Thus as token...
Your line's breaking up. It's more like you've got a bad connection on your wires somewhere, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, let's have a look at your corrections.
Drivers. Yeah, I said drivers.
You
yes,
did.
yes,
You
I remember.
suddenly went into drivers.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one, though, which is personal.
Okay, not with the last. That's
Yeah.
personal. Is it better?
Yeah, not personnel.
Personal.
Personal. It's the ul at the end.
Personal.
Yes, that's it.
Personal. Okay.
And then but instincts, not by. I think you...
But instincts.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a comma, and it did say by earlier, and then you allowed that because it said he learnt by experience, by instincts long dead. No, because it's did he learn by experience, but instincts long dead became alive again. And as you quite rightly put out, rightly said diverse.
Diverse, yes.
Yeah. Not divers, diverse. You've got a soft
Diverse.
S at the end, yeah. Not because if it was divers, as in scuba divers, then you have this. But diverse, okay, is, which I presume is what they meant to write here. In fact, I would write it, of course, correctly, but maybe it's the American spelling. I don't know, because I put diverse with an E on the end. Diverse, okay.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, and it must be diverse because it's diverse small
Yes.
copies of himself, lots of little copies of himself. Okay, you can't see April. Marco, April's being silly today, so see if you can find her. She's playing hide and seek.
Neatness of the civilization was now evidenced by his ability to flee from the defense of a moral consideration and so save his hide. He did not steal for joy of it, but because of the clamor, but stole secretly and cunningly out of respect for crab and fang. In short, the things he did were done because it was easier to do them than not to do them. His development or retrogression was rapid. His muscles became hard as iron, and he grew callous to all ordinary pain. He achieved an internal as well as external economy. He could eat anything, no matter how loathsome or indigestible, and once eaten, the juices of his stomach extracted the last, and his blood carried it to the farthest reaches of his body, bringing it into the toughest and stoutest of tissues. Sight and scent became remarkably keen. By his hearing developed such acuteness that in his sleep he heard the faintest sound and knew whether it heralded peace or peril. He learned to bite the ice out with his teeth when it collected between his toes, and when he was thirsty and there was a thick scum of ice over the water hole, he would break it by rearing and striking. His most conspicuous trait